Welcome to this episode of Wide Pals Tales from the Superyacht Laundry. I am joined today by the gorgeous Natalie Watkins. How are you doing?
I'm good.
We've just actually been chatting about how long we've known each other, which I kind of knew you through other things before I knew you.
Yeah.
But you've known...
What other things?
I think like when you did your podcast was probably the first...
On your radar.
On my radar.
Yeah.
But I've known your partner. I'm pretty sure we were at a brew house at the same time.
Yeah. You've known each other a long time.
Long time.
Go way back.
Way back. Before too much evidence on the internet.
Yeah. I was only saying the other day how grateful I am that I grew up in a time where there wouldn't be a lot of evidence, like recordings, photos from the wild times, like teenage years.
Yeah.
You know, I did get a phone probably the last year of school, but you couldn't really take pictures. You definitely couldn't take pictures on it. When I was at college, I think you could take some really crappy pictures on the phone. But, you know, there's so much life that there wouldn't be any evidence from. And I love that. I'm really grateful for that time.
I think it's a blessing in disguise because, you know, in your mind, you do rewrite history.
Yeah. You glaze over the bad parts and you only remember the good.
That was a really amazing night. Probably forgetting some sketchy details. So like you just, you know, a bit of rose tinted.
Oh yeah,
but
course.
If it's on social media, you know, it's there in all of its technical.
And that was back in the times where you were just living the good times for the good times, not for the pictures of it.
Well, there's definitely obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves at the moment, but like, you edit. You know, you couldn't help it, especially as women, you know, that's before we get into doing filters and all of this perfect thing, you're going to start editing your life from the get-go because you'll change your behaviour.
Absolutely.
You know, there'll be less dancing on tables, falling over. Do you know what I mean? Those funky dance moves that we did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you see the things that actually, you know, talking about things from social media, but like you see them going around on social media, like there are videos of like festivals in the 90s and everyone's just dancing like no one's watching. And then there's videos of festivals today and everyone's on their phone.
Yeah.
Everyone's recording it, not actually experiencing it.
It's quite depressing. I think I mentioned on previous episodes I saw retro nights advertised like up in Manchester.
What, where they lock your phone away?
Yeah, so they stick a sticker to put over your camera.
So they don't actually take it off you?
No,
That's
they don't take it off you. But maybe they should, but they put a sticker over it. So over the camera and just like get on with it.
Love it.
I quite like that. I mean, you don't, at the time, it wouldn't even cross our minds, you know.
I love that when I, especially as a teenager, when I would go out, my mum didn't know when I was coming home. Could be days later.
No.
You know, there was no way of contacting me. There was
the rage of them when you got home. Like, where have you been?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to know, Mother.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't. But it's an interesting state of editing. And I think, obviously, that walks into everything. You know, work parties, you can't... You know, there's tales of wild work parties, they've gone, and then work in general, you know, and the yachting industry is not immune to it, you know, and also it's probably painting the yachty lifestyle in a lot more glamorous light than it actually is.
Yes.
Because obviously if you're working on board, to cheer yourself up, you'll only put the nice ones on Instagram.
Yeah, I do think the yachty lifestyle is an Instagram lifestyle.
I didn't feel like mine was at the time.
Well, no, that's just it. It's very Instagrammable.
Yeah,
you know,
we do get to go to some stunning places.
you get to go out, take your picture, then go back to work again. You don't actually get to go to these really nice places.
No.
You travel a lot, but do you actually see these places?
There's only a few places where I had like proper guest envy. Like we were in this beautiful bay. I can't remember what Greek island we were, but we pulled in, and the guest, he was just this crazy ass Chinese guy, like half Chinese, half British, smoking cigars, eating croissants after having like transplants and all sorts of things. He was like made of loads of other people's bodies. But he still smoked his cigars, still ate croissants, and he was the first up, and he was getting really annoyed that nobody was up. So he took over the stereo and was blasting out ABBA at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God, who is this guy? I want to know him.
In this bay, this stunning bay of this Greek island. I mean, it was beautiful that morning. There'd been dolphins and all sorts of things, like dolphins. Like, it was idyllic. And then he got up, and it was just really trippy because I was just cracking up and laughing because we were just playing ABBA. I can't remember which ABBA song it was. But anyway, it's just like etched in my mind. It's just like playing it, and then obviously then they started to come up from the guest cabin. So what's going on? Yeah. But I did have, because they all went swimming after breakfast, and I was just like, oh.
You like to do that?
Well, yeah, rather than clearing the table, it would have been nice to do that. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
Quite easy to digress.
Oh, absolutely.
So obviously you're on our podcast, and the reason why I think it's quite interesting what you've gone on to do next, but your story is quite extensive and long.
It's long because I've lived longer. I've lived a lot of life.
But you were quite late to the game with the yachting industry.
Yeah, which I know you also were a little, right?
30.
Yeah. So I do think there's a lot of value getting into the industry a bit later in life. Because I do think it's a little bit of like a Peter Pan lifestyle. And if you do, so my husband was also in the yachting industry, and he got in, age 19. And because it is that Peter Pan lifestyle, you just don't really grow up. And I think a lot of these people that get in super young, they go from their parents' house to a boat. You still don't learn how to do, unless you're doing laundry, you don't learn how to do your laundry. You don't learn how to cook for yourself. You don't learn how to pay bills. Like you get to stay in that permanent state for a long time. And then the industry spits you out again in your 30s, and you suddenly got to grow up. So whereas doing it the other way round, I found a lot of value in that. I had a career, a life, a house, a marriage, before I got into the industry. So then I went in with that sort of life skills that you bring to the table. And I found that was actually super helpful. Although a lot of people were like, oh, you're just too old.
Wow.
But actually
we can get into how like the ageism in the industry a bit later on. So what were you doing before yachting came on your horizon?
So I didn't even know what yachting was. But and initially I've always been, I guess, entrepreneurial, if you like. I owned a fitness studio for 17 years. I was teaching. I was a fitness instructor and studio owner. I was teaching aerial hoop, silks, and pole dancing way back before it was fashionable.
I suppose right. So like the hoop as in
aerial hoop, and silks, and flexibility classes did for adults and children for fun and fitness. The studio was big, a lot of people had heard of it. It was called Tiger Tone Studios on the south coast of the UK. At its peak, we'd have 200 people through the door each week. Wow. I had someone working for me, and I got married at 23. I bought a house when I was 21. So I had a dog. And then when I turned 30, everything changed. Everything changed. There wasn't, over the course of 3 years, there wasn't a single aspect of my life that looked the same as it did before. Not a single bit. So it started with the collapse of my marriage, which was it wasn't a huge fallout or anything. It just grew apart, and that's fine.
Well, you kind of got married at 23.
Exactly. Right? The chances of you being the same people early 20s to early 30s is really slim. So yeah, just grew apart over time, got married super young. We were married for 8 years. We gave it a good go.
Fair enough.
So marriage ended, which I wanted to stay in the house, so I had to buy him out the house. And also, we both made good money, but he did make more money than me. So once he moved out, that was 70% of the household income walked out the door. So I started to get into that's when I started to get into debt. Then
it's really hard to do that. Like one of my long-term relationships, I remember that, obviously we had this flat together, we bought all this furniture together. And for me, I just couldn't lose him and all of everything else. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, everything's going. I think that was me holding on. And in hindsight, exactly the same. I ended up getting into debt to pay him to keep all of the shit. When really I should have just.
Yeah, well, actually, the shit I didn't care so much about. It was the walls. I was like, I just want the house. Like, you could take virtually everything in it if you really want to. So, and there was a moment once he'd moved out. And we'd arranged that he'd come in and take some bits and pieces while I wasn't there. And I came back after he'd done that, and I sat in the middle of my living room, which, I'm not joking, had nothing left in it. Nothing. It was a completely bare room. I had the carpets. He'd even taken some of the pictures off the walls. Like, it was empty room. I had curtains and carpet. Just sat there, and I was like, at least I've got the house. And I had to pay for the house, 50% of the equity I gave to him. But that was the beginning of like shedding of my old life. Then a year later, my dog died. Horrific, obviously, anyone who's lost a pet. And then a year later, COVID happened, which closed my business. So obviously COVID hit hard in the March. So my doors closed. I wasn't making any money. I immediately started doing bits and pieces. I immediately started to, deliver food for Tesco's, like delivery driver, and things like that. But I wasn't anywhere near covering bills. So I was getting more into debt. And
because obviously the building. I can't imagine that you own the building that your business is
I was
in. So like rent and stuff like
absolutely
that continues.
Yeah, everything. And I unfortunately fell through every crack when it came to the government help. It's just the way I had done accounts and things. It's just the way I was paying myself and blah, blah, blah. It's just meant that I just fell through every crack. So I really didn't get any help. So it wasn't until the October where Tiger Tone officially closed, but obviously it had been closed the whole time. So by then I had started seeing my now husband, but it was at that point that huge amounts of debt. We're talking £50,000 worth of debt. It became very clear that I had to move out my house. So I did move out. I got tenants in to cover, so at least I wasn't having to pay the mortgage. Because of that move, I had to sell or get rid of everything. So if what I couldn't sell, I gave away, and I got down to just 2 suitcases. So I literally shed everything from my old life. I had 2 suitcases of stuff like summer clothes and winter clothes, basically. And then it was like, okay, what's the next move? And my initial thought was, let's run away.
What, in your opinion, what was the hardest thing to let go of?
Moving out my house. Moving out my house was the hardest thing. I didn't care too much about stuff, but yeah, moving out. And even because initially when I moved out and I got tenants in, the whole move was I'll come back one day. You know, I just need someone else to cover this mortgage while I get back on my feet. And then I'll move back in. But I just wasn't ready to completely let go of it. Like I never went back after that. Actually,
yeah, but you don't know that.
Exactly. I needed to do it slowly. I wasn't the type to just be like, don't need this anymore. I needed to do it like a gradual steps. Because I did fight really hard for the house when my marriage ended. You know, I wanted to keep the house. And then, you know, only for a few years later to actually end up having to move out of it anyway. It was like quite a hard pill to swallow.
It is. But like I said about that situation I found myself in, there's only so much I think your brain can cope with. You know, and although I was told by family members to just let it go back to my parents, like literally. Mm-hmm. Just, you know, I was already depressed. I didn't need to be any more depressed. But ultimately, like you say, it ends up being, you know, you get pushed into a corner anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that's a process. You know, it happens like that. I do for a reason.
I do also, like, I am absolutely sorry, world, but I do think in a way that COVID was sent to just push me to do the things that I did, because had it not have happened, I'd still have my business, I'd still be there, no doubt, you know. And so that I didn't have that thing that pushed me to do, like I always talk about, like the train that's going to hit you. Mine was a big train and it came in the form of COVID to get me to change my life. I'm so grateful for that now. But like I say, I am sorry to the rest of the world that had to experience that, because I do think it was sent to just get me to do what I needed to do, because I wouldn't have made that step on my own. I just wouldn't. But by then, so I like I say, I'd only just started seeing my now husband, and he was in the yachting industry, but he was back because of COVID and things, which gave us an opportunity to, you know, properly date and get to know each other. Mm-hmm. And I do remember he initially told me what he did, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I made it no effort to find out what that really was. Didn't have a clue. And it was a few months in, and he was like, have you ever seen Below Deck? And I was like, no, what's that? He was like, well, it's just, he explained it like, well, it's not really what life is like, but it's a good idea of what I used to do, or like what I do. So he put it on, and I was like, oh yeah, this is like the best kind of shit TV I love, you know, that you could just binge watch. So binge watched one of the seasons, and I was like, oh, this is what you do. So I had no idea that this was a thing. Like I said, he'd said about it, but I was just like, oh yeah, well, you worked on boats. That's as far as it went in my head.
People don't really get their heads around it very easily.
Yeah. So then, and at this point, I was all up for just running away anyway. And I'd always wanted to do a ski season. I snowboarded anyway. So I was like, I want to go do that. Like, after watching Below Deck, I want to go do that. But before that, I need to get a ski season out my system. Like, I want to spend a few months in the mountains. I was already an okay snowboarder. I wanted to get to be a good snowboarder. So first stop, and he wasn't super keen on the ski season because you just don't make any money. And he was used to making very good money.
Well, yeah.
So
it is the poor relation.
Yeah.
In the travelling. Although I'd always by the time I found yachting, working in the ski hills, I already knew that it wasn't fab money, because you don't earn that much. Again, it's that room and board scenario.
Yeah.
Like, you get your room and board.
Yeah.
But you will spend money on those nights out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, even the limited amount.
Although my experience was very different because first stop was Val d'Isere, so he agreed to come with me.
I didn't realise he went.
Yeah. So we did. He was like, yeah, we went and did a ski season together. Yeah.
Wow. I can imagine him doing that.
Yeah. So we went to Val d'Isere, but it was still very COVID-y. So we were there for 5 months, and I think we did 3 weeks worth of work because we didn't have any guests.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
So we ran a 6-bedroom chalet, hot tub on the veranda, ski in, ski out, beautiful. So we basically, just me and him, we lived in this place for 5 months. 3 weeks, I think it was 3 weeks out of the entire 5 months, we shared it with some guests. Otherwise, we didn't work. We snowboarded every day. I got very good at snowboarding, and then I also learned to ski as well because it's always good to swing both ways.
Although I have to say, I'm a skier.
Oh, yeah.
I did try, but I just didn't have patience. I tried snowboarding, and it was just too long on my arse. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to say I'm a skier.
Yeah, so I'm a snowboarder that can ski, and he is a very good skier that can snowboard. Mm-hmm. It just means that you can pick and choose. I'm not an amazing skier. I can get down a mountain alive. That's all I can do. I can't do anything fancy on the way down. I can get down alive.
It's mad how I learned to ski, but I also roller skated. And when I tried snowboarding, I didn't like my feet being stuck to the same thing.
Right.
It really, I never skateboarded or anything like that. My brain just could not get to, my feet needed to be independent. Like they just, I couldn't.
Yeah, whereas when I had a surf lesson, a few years ago, and the first thing they said, they were like, oh, do you snowboard? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, great, you're going to be fine then. There is not a single thing that's similar. I was not fine. I cannot surf. That snowboarding did not prepare me for surfing in any way. So I don't see what the people are on about. I think snowboarding is snowboarding.
Well, it's a board, isn't it? So technically you should be ahead of anybody else.
Doesn't feel the same. Not at all. Not at all. But yeah, so we were super lucky. So yeah, we didn't really work. We just sort of hung around Val d'Isere. We had a lovely time.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah. Now, when the snow started to melt, we were like, okay, we need to plan our next move. And that was meant to be boats and yachts. So he, really annoyingly, he just literally just logged into his online profile I can't remember which agency it was, but he literally just logged in. He didn't update anything. He just logged in. On the same day, he had 2 calls from a captain's offering him jobs. He accepted one of them. He was gone by the end of the week.
To be fair, he was in the game when I was.
I know.
So he's got loads of experience.
I was then panicking because he did have to, because his job was starting immediately. He left, so I was left in Val d'Isere on my own, and I had spent quite a long time. I'd already got my STCW and the medical one, whatever that is, ENG one. I got that before I left for Val d'Isere. So I was prepared, and I had got together a good CV, I was ready to go, but no one was calling me. No one was calling me. So when he got this, snapped his fingers and he was gone, I was like, oh, this is going to be tougher than I thought.
What age were you then?
I was 35. Yeah. So then after a couple of weeks, I left Val d'Isere and I just flew to where he was. So I was like, I'll just dock walk where he is. At least I know someone. So I flew to Palma and I walked around in the rain because it rained the entire time I was there. And I dock walked, came up with nothing. I had quite a nice time. I stayed in an Airbnb because the crew house was full. He was obviously staying on board, but we would see each other in the evenings. He was in a shipyard period there. And then his boat was moving to Saint-Tropez. So I figured I had a booking at the Grapevine. So I was going to go to the south of France and just try my luck there. So his boat left. I flew to the south of France, and I think I just made myself such a pain hanging around his boat in Palma that by the time I got off the flight in Nice, I had a call from the captain of his boat saying, okay, I've got 3 weeks of day work for you. If you come to Saint-Tropez, I can give you some day work. I was like, thank you. So I think, like I said, I just made myself annoying hanging around his boat, I think, for long enough. So I went straight to Saint-Tropez. I had 3 weeks of day work, but as you know, with day work, you don't get bored, you know.
Where is there to stay in Saint-Tropez?
So I had an Airbnb in the centre of Saint-Tropez, yeah. So, I mean, I didn't make any money. You know, the money I was making on day work, that I got food during the day. Obviously, I got fed during the day by the chef. But, yeah, the rest of the money went on my accommodation and food.
Is there even, like, I would not...
It was a really nice apartment, right?
Well, no, I guess it was really nice.
Yeah,
but
really
like
nice.
I don't know anybody that
I actually stayed in 2 different places. The first place was it was about a 20-minute walk out of the port of Saint-Tropez, and that was like a ground floor self-contained part of someone's house. Really, really nice. And then the second one was an apartment above a restaurant in the centre of Saint-Tropez port. Yeah.
Which sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, and
mega expensive if you're only doing day work.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't, like I said, there was no money left, put it that way.
It's experience.
It was. So because I had those 3 weeks of day work that I could then put on my CV, by the end of those 3 weeks, I had a call from a captain on a boat in Dubai, and I was off, and I went to Dubai.
So he's staying in...
Yeah. So we knew that we'd have to do time apart. It was, you know, we just knew, like, he's got all this experience, years of experience, and I don't. So we knew that we'd have to do time apart so that I could build up experience. And then once you've got some experience under your belt, you can start being a bit fussy about the jobs that you take. Whereas initially, you can't be fussy. You can't be, oh, can my boyfriend come along? Like, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. And he was a first officer on board, but he still didn't have that pull to be like, oh, you know, I want my girlfriend. And we hadn't been together like a crazy amount of time either. So yeah, we knew we'd have to do some time apart. Actually turned out we only did 3 months apart. Which was a lot less than we thought. We thought we'd do a whole season. I went to Dubai for 3 months, and my job was permanent. I could have stayed there, but after 3 months, I got a call from him saying someone's just walked off the other boat, because he was part of a fleet. So he's like, someone's just walked off the other boat. I've told them about you. Answer the phone if they call. And I was like, okay. Yeah, and a couple of hours later they called. And I'm like, so yeah, you might be interested in a job on board. And I was like, yeah. So yeah, like, literally a week later, I was back on my way to Saint-Tropez.
Back to
Saint-Tropez. And then I had a job on board, like the sister boat to the one he was working on.
What do you think? What's your impressions of Saint-Tropez? Because obviously it's a very unique place.
So I really have a lot of fond memories there. So I do love it. I think it's a really special place. My initial, you know, I did live there for quite a significant amount of time in the end. Like our boats would go out, but they'd always come back. And I actually lived in a crew house. So I was land based there. So I do love it. I think it is a really special place. However, I do remember my initial feelings when I got there. I remember when I first went to Saint-Tropez and I saw all the money and all the lavish lifestyle and the people that brings, and it made me a little sick. Because I guess I hadn't been around the yachting industry enough, and I wasn't desensitized to it yet.
Well,
yeah, and I just looked around and I was like, the good you could do in the world with what you have, the resources you have. And it just made me sad and sick, But unfortunately, you do get super desensitized quite quickly, and in a way, I justified it in my head by that they have created a lot of jobs and opportunity for a lot of people. Like, it's a huge industry, the people that build the boats, the people that manage the boats, not just the crew. And so we're all feeding our families and boosting economies with the money that we get paid to do those things.
I mean, that's the age old, that discussion, regardless of whether yachting exists or not, is the structure of our world. There has always been the wealthy, the powerful, and then everybody underneath.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing. It's like a friend of mine's asked me to go to India.
Yeah.
And I want to go, but that's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, I've had friends come back from India and to see that kind of poverty, that kind of suffering, it's the other end.
Yeah.
And then obviously you go to somewhere like Saint-Tropez where it's just money's just dripping off every.
Yeah, it's super interesting subject. My good friend, we've been friends since we were 4. She's born in London, but her parents are from Sierra Leone. And it was only a couple of weeks ago, she was over my house and something came on TV while we were together, and she was, and they'd gone to the same village that her family were originally from. She's never actually been. Like I say, she's born in London, very British. But they were talking about Bow, the village in Sierra Leone, and she was like, classic white people going to see all the poor black people. She's like, it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, they're going to visiting the schools and visiting, building wells and things like that. She was like, I just don't like it. Just don't like it.
So do you think she thinks that they shouldn't go?
Exactly. So
you're not meant to go to a place like that because it's different to where you're
and that's
from.
what I mean. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, what I don't know I don't know. I get what she's saying. She was like, they come and they stare.
It's tourism.
Yeah, they come on holiday and they look.
But again, it's that thing, if you can't see, it's like, I'm not just trying to say this, it's like aquariums. So I went when I was a kid to SeaWorld. So I saw, the killer whale that's in the movie Blackfish.
Yeah, me
saw
too.
it, best time of my entire life.
I'm ashamed to say the same.
I
loved SeaWorld.
Overwhelmed with how incredible the creatures were, and to be that close. I will remember that for the rest of my life. Is it right?
Shamu, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it's doesn't begin with a K. Was it Shamu? Oh, one that ended up killing two if I. So,
exactly the same.
So it's one of those things. So I now, through having that experience and being that close, if I see something on, a nature program about killer whales and protecting them, I've got, when I was in New Zealand, I lived with and worked with people that ended up working on Sea Shepherd, and, I now understand a lot more. It's that whole, if you don't go, you've got no emotional connection. So, I understand that your friend would probably find it offensive that people are just gawking at the poor.
Yeah.
But then if you don't go and be moved by that, you're not an advocate to get that removed or change that scenario. Because if you can't see it, it doesn't affect you.
Yeah, I agree. And
it's a real tricky situation.
Because I see both sides.
So in the UK, we've got Comic Relief.
Yeah.
Comic Relief was started, was it not long after it was Live Aid and stuff like that. So it's a TV program to raise money. It's generally a lot. They do tons of work in Africa. It's not solely. But they kind of ended up getting into trouble because obviously they'd send celebs over there to tell the stories of what it's like to live in a village with no well and stuff like that. And obviously because we can connect with the celebrity, and then the celebrity is telling the story.
Yeah.
They raise money.
Yeah.
And then we send it. So then what money would be raised if nobody went?
Absolutely. I see both sides.
It's tricky.
Because the other side is, should we just stay ignorant and not go and see these things, just think that the whole world is the way we have it, that's not right either. So
I mean, it's also like, because you can only send a person, like say for instance your friend that's got an emotional connection to that place, to report on that. Does it make it more complicated? Do you know what I mean? Than it needs to be. I think it's, and nobody wants to offend anybody, but people do care and they are sympathetic and empathetic. But then kind of say, do you know what I mean? You're not helping the cause.
No.
But it's, it's also when you go to somewhere like Saint-Tropez and you see Dubai as well,
Yeah, and Dubai is exactly the same.
Obscene wealth.
Yeah.
Do you go around the street trying to take everything off? Like, you need to share.
Yeah, and I think Saint-Tropez, because it's so concentrated, because it's a tiny little fishing port. It's tiny. And then they shoehorn these huge mega yachts into this tiny little port, little fishing village in the south of France. So it's so concentrated and it's so obvious. Like these yachts are taller than the buildings opposite, and it
is very picturesque, very cute.
It is.
There's a lot of showiness. So, you pull your boat onto the back on there, you want to be seen. There's a lot of to be seen, and then obviously that's not all the beach bars around there are places also to be seen. It is like I said, it's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. And I think as yachties, you do get desensitized to it because it doesn't shock me the way it used to. I remember that feeling, and I don't feel like that anymore.
Well, you're exposed to it, so you're not shocked by it, and then obviously that always leads into the fact that when you come out of the yachting industry, you're used to, I joke about on this podcast all the time about cleanliness and being OCD and trying to make everything look nice. I mean, if people could see the other side of the camera during this podcast and what my daughter has done on the other side, how embedded that gets to you, that you want that kind of style look.
Yeah.
But that's not your life.
Yeah.
It was, you were exposed to somebody else's life. It is a tricky one. It's like, this is a good billionaire because he offsets his carbon for his mega yacht.
I used to say,
if you added that and then his flight logs, and do you know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
They're never
I
going
used to
be.
say that the owner of this boat's really nice because he thinking the amount of staff he probably has 300 members of staff, but he knows our name. He knows our names. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
He remembers our names. Like what? It's you think that's a good thing. Like,
well,
he should know my name. I give him food every day.
Well, it's only, if he was anybody else you were serving in a cafe or whatever, if you saw them every day, you'd expect them to kind of know your name.
Yeah.
It's no different. There's lots of enigmas within the world of yachting. But it's nice to hear people's first impressions.
And I remember the first super yacht or mega yacht I ever saw in real life. And I do remember that moment. It was in Palma when I was dock walking. And although you dock walking, you sort of see them. I remember this was the first one that, like a big yacht.
Over 80 metres.
I think it might have been roughly that. Oh, no, it might be. Am I allowed to say boat names? I never worked on it.
Yeah.
Here Comes the Sun.
Oh, yeah.
How big is that? I don't know. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. So I remember standing at the bottom of that and going, whoa. And that's the first time I'd ever seen a super yacht up close like that.
You're hooked, though, because you get kind of like, I remember going down the International Quay on Tebe, and Princess Olga came in.
Yeah.
And she was brand spanking new at the time. And I was like, that's a nice yacht. And I don't know, she was probably 80, maybe a bit more. She was big.
Yeah.
And she's not obviously the biggest.
No. They get so big now. Like, you're just a number on those ones.
Well, that is kind of, you know, I mean, I found my stride in the 60, 70 metre mark. I didn't want to go down to 40 metres again. I kind of like, it's just that perfect amount of crew. I don't think I could have worked on a massive one because then it just becomes a bit cruise ship.
Yeah.
You know? Because once you start putting in rotation and everything else, like, it is literally like working on a cruise ship, which suits some.
Yeah.
But I think like the closeness.
I had an eclectic, so I think, so the biggest I worked on was 99 metres. But then the last job we had before we left, we went onto a small boat so that, because he went in as captain. So how big was that? I can't remember now. Small. I had 5 cabins.
Okay.
We were sole crew.
30,
Yeah, I think it's 20-something.
27.
20-something.
It's still decent, like, you know, a few million quid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it was 4 million or something. But yes, so I had I did the range, I guess, and obviously mega yachts are motor. The last one we were on a sailboat, so again that comes with this whole new spectrum of problems when you're on a sailboat. Everything moves.
I never went into the
the cooking in a galley then when we were offside on was interesting.
So what was your obviously you're quite late to the game in stew terms.
Yeah. So I was never really a stew. I am a terrible cleaner. Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
You didn't put that on your CV though.
No. So initially I wanted to be on deck. I'm an outdoor girl. I like camping. I like snowboarding. I like being outside. And I thought the thought of me being trapped in a laundry room, like, I would rather hang myself.
It's a bit extreme.
Yeah, it was just like, I just don't think I would have coped. I would have withered away and died. I needed to be outside. So I was like, I want to be on deck. So I went to Flying Fish on the Isle of Wight, and I did my deckhand course. I was the only girl doing the deckhand course. And then when I initially went out and I started dock walking, I got told by 2 different captains of different boats that I should stay in my lane, be a girl, be a stew. And I was like, no, I refuse. So I started to get really disheartened, and I thought I might have to start to compromise somewhere. And then and how it initially came about is my CV was very deck orientated, all about being outdoors and doing the, like I said, trained at Flying Fish to be deckhand. And I was initially walking around this shipyard in Palma, and a guy, he was on board the boat that was on a dry stack, so he was high up, and he leant over and he was like, "Are you looking for work?" And I was like, "Yes." He was like, "Can you cook?" And I was like, "Yeah, like, I'm a really good cook, actually." He was like, "Come on up." He gave me an interview, and he offered me a job of chef on this sailboat. I did consider it because I had no other offers going. But after talking it over and the itinerary and the other people that were on board, I just didn't think it was going to be a good fit, and I didn't want to accept it just to leave them in the lurch a few months later.
Yeah.
So I didn't accept that job. But it was at that moment that I was like, yeah, you know what? I can bloody cook. Like, maybe this is where I compromise. I don't think I even changed my CV, but when I got that call from a captain from a boat in Dubai, it was for a cruise ship.
No, really?
And he had decided that he he liked the look of me and thought I'd be a good cruise chef, because like I said, my CV didn't really hint to that. So yeah, I took that job and I went out and I was a cruise chef, and from then I was chef the whole time after that. And when we got the job on the smaller boat where he was captain, I was chef. But because it was just me and him, like, that did mean that I would have to change some beds and clean a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Which was not my favourite part of my job at all. But I was sort of, but it did also mean that I was outside a lot because it was just the two of us. So like, he would come in and, he would set the table, for example, while I was cooking, So you get to do a bit of everything. I think if I was solely inside just cleaning, I wouldn't have survived at all. It's just not, it's just, you just have your strengths, and that's not one of them. I am super tidy, and I always have been. I like, almost to the point of OCD. Like, I will piss people off, and I've also lived on my own as well. So I am used to, like, where I put things down is where I expect them to stay. So like, when I come back, they should still be there, right?
Yeah. No.
So I will like slightly move the remotes so that they're in line. I'm that kind of, I'm super, super tidy, but actually cleaning is not my thing. But I can cook, so I got away with it.
Well, that's one of them.
I can plump your pillows.
It's not many people that have a joy in cooking, cleaning, to be honest.
I think some people really like it.
I do like making things, but then people come and wreck it. It's one of the problems with this house.
And then you just give up in the end, I guess.
So I really like it when my husband goes away.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because then my house just stays the way that I want it.
I do think there is so much. I think it's really important. I'm sorry if you're not one of these people, but I think it's really important that everyone lives on their own at one time in their life, because you do really learn how you like things without the interaction of anyone else.
Yeah. And then you have to learn how to compromise, which is really sucks.
Yeah.
But so you were late in. When did you start thinking about leaving?
So I think it's down to my partner. I guess I'd had my experience. I'd had a really nice time. It was quite short-lived, only a few years, but I really enjoyed my time. And I'd got back on my feet. I'd cleared all my debt. Yeah, that didn't take very long at all. Once I was yachting, it was like, great, clear all the debt off. I could come back to the UK with a nice clean slate, and I could sell my house, which would then give me a deposit for another one. I was in a really good position. So it had served its purpose. I had done what I wanted to do. I'd travelled, and he had been in the industry a lot longer. And I think he had got to that point where he was like, I just want to go home. He's got two sisters that had a kid each, and we'd come back for visits and they wouldn't know who he was, And I think that was tough for him, his nephews to not know who their uncle was because he was never around. So I think he was just getting to that point where he's like, I want to settle down. I want a house. I want to
roots.
Roots. Exactly. And because I had a whole life, and luckily we are from the same area. So I'd had a whole life before all of this. So I've got friends, real friends and family as well in the exact same area. So although I went gallivanting for a few years, my friends still stood by me,
Yeah.
So I've got something to come back to, all my friends are not surrounded, not in the yachting industry at all. They are all, unfortunately, they're all in this real small pocket of the world.
It's kind of a blessing, because it's one of the things that's quite lonely when you come out of the industry. Because your friends, your really good friends, most of the time live all over the planet.
Exactly. And so I do feel like to come back was super easy. Because I just slot right back into, my friends' groups and things. So the only trouble was the work situation. It's like, okay, now what? What
am I going to do?
Yeah, I honestly didn't have the strength to open a studio again. And I really didn't, I felt like that would be going backwards to do that again. I was sort of like, there was a whole chapter of my life that I absolutely adored, and I have such fond memories, and it was an amazing chapter. It's time for the new one. And I felt like if I, you know, once I sort of announced that I was coming back, everyone was like, oh, you're going to open a studio again. I'm like, I don't know. No. You know, and sometimes I wish, sometimes I think, oh, it would be nice. But like, it is only a fleeting moment where I think that, because I think it would spoil it, because it was so amazing before.
I mean, if the world, you know, obviously for those of you not in the UK, if it was good for business in the UK, you know, you could be lured into it, but it's not great for any businesses.
No,
right
it's
now.
still
it's definitely
still
not
risky.
The time to start a business.
And having been from a, you know, a successful career, and you know, me and my ex-husband, we were on track to be finishing our mortgage in the next 5 years. You know, like having to be in such a very comfortable position, and then to lose everything and go completely the other way and be in a huge amount of debt with no, no way of paying it back, and to claw back from that, it's like, I don't want to risk doing this again.
No.
You know, I can't do it again. So, you know, before we officially left the industry, it wasn't a last minute decision. It wasn't like, right, we're done, you know, walk away. There was a planned step by step. So a couple of years before we left, I started studying and training around work, you know, from abroad, to be a functional health practitioner. So that is, it works alongside a medical model. It's designed to get to the root causes of issues. So you go to the doctors, they'll treat your symptoms, but it's, you know, what I do is I ask, well, why did you get that in the first place? Let's address that so it doesn't happen again. And it brings everything together, you know, so you go to the doctors for like this one thing, but he hasn't asked, well, 2 years ago you had this other thing. Well, they're actually connected. No one's looked at that. You know, I would. So it's bringing everything together. And because of my, you know, career before as a fitness instructor, I could get people fitter and stronger and sort out their nutrition, and maybe they'll lose a bit of weight. You know, I did all that before, but you know, they were coming in with chronic fatigue or ME, you know, and I wouldn't know how to help them. Well, I do now, you know, and so it ties everything together for me. And the fact of working as a chef and seeing how food is crucial. You know, people, when I would cook for people, they're on holiday. So, you know, there was no holds barred, but like, it was just free for all. But, you know, seeing if someone was staying for, you know, a few weeks, they'd say to me, oh, you know, actually, I haven't been feeling great because, you know, of all this alcohol and all this food. Maybe if I have this, or, you know, I say, yeah, I can do that. Or I can offer some little bit of advice here and do this for you. And they're like, yes. And then they get better. And be like, oh, the power of food. And then all my knowledge about the human body from before. And then I found functional health, and I was like, oh, you know,
wow.
this ties everything together. It ties lifestyle, food, nutrition, you know, exercise, movement, muscles, body, like it ties everything together. And now it makes sense. So I trained in that while I was working abroad. And then what that would look like when I came back, I didn't really know. And I think I didn't really decide straight away. We left our boat in the May. We went on lots of holidays, like back-to-back holidays for a while. We didn't buy a house to live in until the July. Even once we bought it, we were away a bit, you know, we weren't really in it. Then we renovated it. And so I think it was, probably November when I was like, okay, need to actually
earn some money.
Start working now. I'd done bits and pieces, but not really anything. So then it was just the end of last year that I was like, okay, this is what I do for a living, and I announce it, or do the whole social media thing, which I bloody hate, but annoyingly you can't see.
I don't actually find anybody nowadays that's like, yay, social media.
Oh yeah, it's such a drain of my life.
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm the worst. Like, I feel like I've been in hibernation for the last few months because there's so much changing with what we've been doing.
It's a full-time job to do that.
It's also like for me, it's like the headspace of putting yourself out there. Like, what am I saying?
Oh, see, I don't mind that so much. It's the admin around it. I don't like admin. I don't like. If I can outsource something, I will. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can outsource entire social media right now because of cost. But if anyone wants to do it for free, give me a call. It's the actual admin side. Speaking on camera, or just putting some content, like just getting the content, the raw content, fine. What I do after that, and then all the writing and the posting, when to post, who are you trying to get? Oh, I just don't care. But it's so hard to have any sort of business without it.
No, you've got to. It's part of the functionality.
Because even when I had my studio before, I didn't really feel like I had to do the whole social media thing because people did it for me without even knowing. Like my clients were my advertisement. So they would come, they would take their pictures, they would put them on their social medias and tag Tiger Tone. And so it went. Like, I didn't have to do anything. They did it all, especially when you get in a huge amount of footfall. That spreads. It's so easy. I spent most of my time reposting. Like, that's all I did. That's the most amount I had to do with social media before.
So now you're back, and you're both back.
Both back.
So was it conscious that you both jump at the same time?
Yeah. We sticking together, by that point we'd got married. And I guess we leaned on each other, coming back is we have nothing. He didn't have a house before, he's been in this yachting industry, so he didn't have the stuff or a house, and I got rid of everything, so we're starting from scratch. It's difficult, to be a bit later in life and be like, oh, we don't even have a bed. Like, we have nothing. And we bought the house, and I remember the day we moved in, we got the keys and the house, and I'd made some lunch in advance because I knew that it was going to be like a busy day, and I didn't, if I don't eat every few hours, I do get quite angry about it. And so I'd made this lunch in advance, and it got to the point, right, I'm hungry, like, let's eat this. So we just like sat on the floor ready to eat this. Didn't have a knife or fork. Like, didn't have any utensils to eat with.
Oh.
Nothing. Like, so I'd made this like chicken salad, I think it was, and we found one lonely spoon amongst our stuff. So we shared the spoon to eat this salad with.
We've got cutlery now, though.
We got cutlery now.
Yeah. That's a win. So it all seems like it's working.
Well, so far so good. I mean, we're really happy with where we live. Like, our house is the best. Like, we're so happy because we renovated it as well. So it's exactly how we want it. We're so comfortable. We're right around family and friends. He started his new career, which again was strategic. Like, he started that journey before we left the boat. So that's, going well. And then mine is, I was a little bit behind because I'd spent quite a few months once we got back to the UK not doing anything other than going on holidays. But it is going in the right direction. I could definitely be busier, no doubt, but it is working. And we have some really nice plans for the future. And so I just think we're so happy now. And people will say, oh, all the time. People say, don't you miss it? Especially when it's a rainy day, like a grey British rainy day. They're like, don't you miss it? And I'm like, no, I actually don't. And I'm not saying I won't ever miss it. Because there are things, I look back at pictures and I'm like, oh, that was a lovely day. But, I can look back at lots of things and think how amazing they were, and I don't miss it yet. But you could ask me in a year's time and I might say something different. But no, I don't miss it.
I miss the salary. That's probably about all I miss. I could really do with that salary.
Yeah. Nice. But you didn't have that much time to spend it.
No, you didn't have that much time to spend it. But no, it was, my addiction to packing bags and buggering off started like when I was 19. So, and it only got worse. So I do, I miss the
travel.
Yeah, just the packing the bag and
interestingly
off on your own.
Interesting, that's the bit I don't miss yet. So we travelled so much, and so we were averaging like 9 countries a year. I think last year alone, I took 20 flights in a 12-month period. And it's just meant, I'm constantly living out of a suitcase for years, and it's incredible the amount of flying that happens when you work on a boat.
Yes.
There's a lot of flights. And so the last time I got on a plane was September, and that's the longest amount of time that I haven't seen an airport. Is that right? Yeah, it might be. And I bloody love it. Like, I love that I haven't seen an airport that much time. Like, the thought of getting on a flight now is like, ugh, it's such a hassle.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe flight on my own. Like, a flight now with
a child,
husband, child, and my child. It's slightly more stressful experience. So long may it continue.
Yeah.
If you could give 3 pieces of advice to somebody who's considering going on board, what would your advice be?
I would say, definitely do it. If you have that itch, do it. You won't regret it. But it also depends on the stage of life. So I think my one piece of advice would definitely be just live a little life first. Don't use it as like another mum's house. So I would say, if you want to go to uni, do uni, like do that, or like go get a job, or like just travel, or just do those things, and then go work on yachts. So I think that would be my first bit of advice: is
cut the apron strings.
Yeah, live some life. Learn what council tax is. Do stuff. So I think that would be one bit of advice. And advice 2 and 3. Don't just take the first job that you get offered. It has to be the right fit. It does not look good if you've been looking for work for a few weeks or a month or 2 and you get offered something. Don't just go yes because you're desperate. Because if you end up leaving pretty soon after that won't look good either. Although you shouldn't stick around at something you're hating. So if you do need to do that, do it. So just think about it. There is always going to be something else around the corner. So, as I said earlier, I was tempted to take that first job that I was offered, but I did turn it down. And, thank God, because I did run into I saw the boat in the Med, not last year, the year before, saw it hanging around. And I was like, I got offered a job on that boat, but like seeing where it had been and who was, I was like, no, I'm so glad I didn't take that. So yeah, and then third bit of advice, I'd say plan your exit. Unless you can just go home, which was not an option for me, like my mum doesn't have room for me, hasn't had room for me for a very long time. She doesn't live in the house I grew up in, so I don't have a bedroom or anything. So yeah, just walking away isn't, I'd say plan it, start working on something before you leave. So that you have that exit strategy and it's not so tempting to just go, I'll just take this one little contract, just one more season, so unless you are willing to just walk away and go back home, and if that's an option for you, then fine, I guess you can sort of figure it out from there, but then you are so more tempted. As soon as you get annoyed with parents or whatever, you will be tempted to go back again. So I do think it's make decisions and see them through, figure out what it is, and whatever you decide you want to do afterwards, don't have to stick with that necessarily.
No, I think that's one of the bits, like what you think you will be doing when you're ashore probably won't.
No, but you just put it's the stepping stones, right? You put something in motion and you try and see that through. Yeah. But it could lead you somewhere else. And that's great. You don't have to, whatever you think you're going to do is very unlikely it's going to look the way you thought it would.
No. Probably very, very hard to find that. But I'm sure they do exist. But no, it never turns out.
There's always exceptions, isn't there?
Well, it's been fabulous talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, because I do think this platform, this medium that you have created through Yacht Pals of Wisdom, and I just think it's amazing that people like me can come on and talk about our little story, and then I think that'll just be helping so many people out there. There'll be people that want to get in, that will probably find value from, they'll hear someone and be like, oh, that's just like me, or there'll be people that want to get out and then they'll hear something
just like me as well.
And they'll go, oh yeah, if they can do it, Yeah. So I thank you for creating this space.
Well, we're soldiering on. Soldiering on. Because I do, the reason why I like it is because all the stories are amazing. And women are just so self-deprecating that they just don't understand how tough and resilient you have to be to get in and to get out. Mm-hmm. It's really tough, but it's worth the ride.
Yeah, and I think I said that to you in a text, didn't I? Like, my story's full of determination, because
what's the alternative?
Exactly, right? You have to truck on, You do. When I found myself with nothing and in a huge amount of debt, what am I supposed to do? Just roll over. You have to find something. Yeah. So yeah.
So do you have finally a crazy story from your time on board? The weird, the wacky, the scary, it could be anything. Just the moment that you're just like, what the hell just happened?
I guess, so I don't know how careful I can be with what I say. I guess there is a time that sticks out, and it's not something so much that happened. It's sort of listening to a conversation, because obviously, when you're on board with guests, you hear things from their lives, and their lives are very different to us. I have actually often wondered this. I do have a soft spot for watching the Kardashians and stuff, and I always think, I watch that because their lives are so different to mine. So I'm wondering, does it work the other way? Would the 1%ers like to watch a reality TV show of me emptying the dishwasher. Because our lives would be so different.
I was just going to say no.
No,
I can't imagine. No, and that's no offence to you, but I just don't.
We never know. We should ask them.
Interested they'd be. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, their lives are really different. So I do remember this one time I was hearing this conversation. It was between the boat owner and his son. His son was in his 20s, not a small boy. And so we're on his yacht, and he has several yachts. Then some of them were hanging around as well, because he liked to sit on one yacht and look at the others. So that we're all
that floats your boat, I suppose.
So we're sat on his yacht, and he had a call, which I hadn't heard the call, but he'd had a call to say that the pilot of the jet, his plane, had an accident at the airport. He'd basically had a travelator accident and had really cut his face open, bad, like he was going to need surgery and things. So he was in the hospital. And because of the kind of jet he had, they were struggling to get another pilot, and he had to be in Bologna the next day for lunch. And so he was complaining to his son. He was like, I can't believe the bloody pilot has hurt himself. I'm not going to be able to go to lunch. Like, this is a disaster. And they can't find another pilot. And he was going on and on. And so then the son was trying to come up with solutions. He was like, well, why don't you take the helicopter? And he's like, no, it just won't make it. It's too far. And he was getting like more like, oh, woe is me. Like, no point did he talk about how this poor bloody pilot that was in hospital. And in the end, he was like, this is why we always should have a standby pilot. Like, so he's like, I'm sick of this. Like, so he phoned the management company, I assume, I don't know, people who look after the plane. And he was like, right, I want a permanent standby pilot for the rest of time, so this never happens again.
Oh my God.
And I remember thinking, wow. Like,
how much do you reckon that costs?
Yeah, so now he already has the pilot, like, because he couldn't find a pilot, because I don't know how it works, but when you're a pilot of a plane, you're only licensed to fly certain planes. Like, you can't just find any pilot, they have to know that particular plane, and they couldn't find one. So
a different plane.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, that's obviously I know he's like emotionally attached to his plane.
No, I think because I think the son did say charter, and he was so he was like, oh, I don't know. There was a reason why that was inconvenient as well. So the solution was he was then just going to pay someone to never fly his plane, but just in case they needed to, they would be ready to fly the plane. That was the solution.
That is. It's a bit like my husband having 2 lawnmowers.
Yeah.
I'm not really
it's not the same scale.
Why we've got 2 lawnmowers.
Just in case.
Well, one did break. So
there you go.
He never wanted to go through that experience again.
One is in the gardener's hospital. The other one is ready to go, do the job.
On standby.
Yeah,
in the shed.
So I guess that was some...
The men change, the money, just the amount of money.
Yeah.
The men don't change.
Yeah.
Just their standby option slightly changes compared to how much money they've got.
Yeah.
It's like what you're saying, sitting on his boat looking at his other boats.
Yeah,
but then it's like
the whole fleet would have to go out so that he could be on one and look at the others.
It's like having 2 cars or 3 cars.
Oh, yeah. And there's that famous quote that Will Smith said in an interview, that he said that when he first got famous and he bought these really nice cars, he showed his dad and he was like, Dad, look, I've made all this money, look at these real nice cars. His dad goes, well, you've only got one ass.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
So yeah, I guess that's a story. I can't say everything, you can't give away too much about who you see and what goes on.
Wow, I don't think they can.
And then there's the classic, I'd be I'd be sent in a crew car, like a tender, a crew car, to go all the way up the coast to buy the ice cream because they'd run out of ice cream on the other boat. And, like the amount of carbon footprint to get some bloody ice cream on board.
There's no amount of writing off.
No.
There's a write-off.
Yeah. Or like sending the plane back to the UK to get the Harrogate water to bring it back to the south of France.
They had an eco-warrior guy on a debate show on telly the other day. And obviously somebody was up in arms. I think it was Meghan and Harry talking about, saving the planet and all that kind of stuff. And like one flight in a private jet, like return flight, I think, would equate to one person, a normal person's carbon footprint for their own whole entire lifetime.
Really? Is that true?
So the average worked out that how many flights they did. I don't know how many. It was like it just worked out that it's an impossibility for an average person, even with maybe your holiday a year, to even compete with the amount of private jets, even if they go on commercial, let alone talking about the cars that they drive, the boats that they have. It's just impossible. So who should be curtailing their lifestyle?
Yeah.
No, it's us.
Yeah.
They need to take my log burner away. I'm wrecking the planet.
Yeah.
It's all my fault.
It's all my fault. You're all your fault. And as I always say, it's like turning up to an earthquake disaster with a dustpan and brush. Like, what are you going to do?
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you.
We will have you back on again to talk about
hormones.
Because
that's basically what I spend my life talking about.
I have to say it's an intriguing topic.
It's a big one. It is a biggie.
Now being 44, so obviously my hormones are on the way out, or I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, whole new ones are coming in.
They can just bugger off, really.
It's an interesting time.
It's horrible.
No, so I do.
There was a reason why I tried to make sure that I didn't know anything about it before it turned up.
Yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss, but
why would you want to know? It's just going to depress you. There's so many other things about being a woman which aren't great. Why would you add it?
I think being proactive and preventative is very helpful, actually. So that it is an easier time when it happens.
Right.
And
we can save that joy for the next episode.
Yeah, I can teach everyone how to collect your progesterone points. So.
I should be drinking wine during that.
Yeah. But
I'm not doing it sober.
No, fine.
No.
But yeah, I do spend most of my time talking about hormones now because I
can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about learning about where my hormones are going. If you have enjoyed this episode, dear listener, we've got obviously lots of episodes already recorded and we've got many more coming along. Thank you for listening. Our website is under construction at this moment. We're going through a little bit of a revamp, so we will have a lot of resource on there. Obviously, Nat's details will be in the bio below, but we'll allude to what she's been up to a lot more in our next follow-up episode. So until then, have fun, and I will be back soon.